we're dealing with in symptom land. And if you're dealing with symptoms that you were not genetically born with, I always want to remind you that you don't have to suffer with those ails any longer. You can work towards resolving those things. Those things that are developed in your life are also things that you can undevelop in your life. And I was just doing a little statistical research on the interwebs, and because that's the most accurate place everybody gets their data these days, it seems. And I was just more or less curious to see what people would find if they typed in acid reflux, indigestion, because in our office, digestion is, I've always said 80% of all disease starts in the gut. And I would say that based on as I've seen my practice evolve and grow, I wouldn't make a claim that I didn't feel was backed up. And my practice, I really feel for me, is my best laboratory that allows me to make statements. And one of the things that I would say is that I would say even 100% of all disease starts in the gut. And it's such an important conversation to have, and there's so many aspects of the digestive tract. And today we're going to kind of emphasize and focus in on the gastroesophageal reflux disorders, GERD, or acid reflux, or heartburn. Some of these different things that people suffer with and are dealing with.
So how do you kind of handle when you get that heartburn? Because that's from just the acid that from the food you're digesting. Is that correct?
Well, it's several factors. I mean, there could be definitely foods that are trigger foods, inflammatory foods that cause acid reflux symptom patterns. And we're going to talk about some of those foods that it could be. We're going to look at anatomical opportunities. I have patients that come in when they have the stomach is wedged up on the wrong side of the diaphragm. That could be a causal link in the chain. There could be an issue with how efficient the acid production pumps are in the stomach, and they're not producing adequate amounts of acid. And whenever I was looking, the first literally four kind of links that popped up when you type in acid reflux symptoms, acid reflux treatment options, it was 4 different medical doctors, and there was very little in the form of of alternative or safe or relatively non-invasive approaches. It was, well, if you're already taking Tums, if you're already, avoided hot peppers, it's time to do surgery. And I was like, whoa, because this is 60 million Americans are suffering with acid reflux indigestion, and it could be more.
I almost actually said, hey, just take some Tums, but then I was like, I'm talking to Dr. Chapa.
That's right.
He is not going to like that.
Not going to like that because, and that's the thing, is it's if we're reaching to the wrong alternative, it doesn't make it right. And if we can show people that there is a better option, a better way, if we can teach people why it's happening and help their mindset wrap around what they can do about it, which we're going to talk about, I think that people will be more inclined to go, wow, I didn't realize I was, he's empowering us today to take the bull by the horns and see how we can improve our health and well-being just by improving how well our stomach functions. Dr. Bob Marshall up in Austin, one of my old late and great mentors, God rest his soul, he would always say that in the elderly population, if you take care of any one system in their body, take care of their stomach. Take care of that initiation of the breakdown process, because you're only as good as the food you can absorb.
Right.
But if you can't digest it into something that you can absorb, well, you're in trouble, trouble. And if you're in trouble, this disorder of gastroesophageal reflux disease can evolve into more advanced conditions like Barrett's esophagus, where now the acid is regurgitated up so much into the esophageal tissue, that tube from where your mouth is that goes down towards your stomach, that lower esophagus begins to literally burn. It's not designed to be in an acidic environment. So there's this little valve that prevents acid from regurging or backflowing, backing up into that lower esophageal tissue, and therefore you protect it, right? So it's like a one-way valve. It should open and then quickly close. And most of our treatments today are not in the realm of supporting the stomach's ability to digest the food as an initiation to the digestive process. Obviously, our mouth and chewing is the initiative. Making sure that we're eating food that is what I would call real food is probably even a better start to healthy digestion. And then obviously assessing our stress load would probably be another active thought process of consciousness that we need to be mindful of when we're looking at how well are we going to digest our food. I mean, if you're running from a grizzly bear, how well do you think you're going to be digesting in that moment? Not well.
No.
Not well. There's actually a great book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And
what? No way.
I'm telling you, I couldn't believe it. So I had to, the same reaction you had, I had to go, well, I got to go read a little bit about this. And so picking it up, sure enough, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And the premise of the book is really around stress and stress's impact on digestion. I mean, think about how many millions and millions of Americans are floating around today busy, being under Satan's yoke. How many of them are stressed to the point of anxiety? How many of them are stressed to the point of depression? How many of them are stressed to the point of like impending doom? Like they don't have a solution out. And so in that space, what's the difference between a zebra being chased down by a predator versus your psychological manifestation of a predator chasing you down and eating your lunch, so to speak? And the thing with the zebras is they have they are absolutely in a more dangerous, high alerted environment than you and I are right now, but yet they don't get ulcers, and it's not because they're a zebra, and we're human, or, you know what I mean? It's not because of
Right.
the obvious that they have a different makeup. It's because when they're stressed, I don't know, maybe once a day when the lions are hungry, right? And as long as they get away, then they have almost, 20 hours of rest time, freedom time. They might need to be careful of the alligator now that might be lurking in the water hole.
Right.
But, I mean, they have momentary spikes in adrenaline where most of us are pushing our adrenaline up through stimulants. We're running and gunning constantly to an unhealthy level where we're not getting good, adequate rest and recovery. So we're starting the day every day in a deficit. We're not moving enough and grooving enough. And we know if the dude don't move,
The
Dude, don't groove.
I
Yes,
remember
yes,
some
yes.
of these. I remember some of
and
these.
so we haven't forgot some of these old sayings, and we want to make sure that we, plug them deep into people's, conscious thought. But what we're looking at is how does all these things affect, our acid reflux or ulcering of the tissues or damaging of tissues in our digestive tract. And so we, as Americans, different from these zebras, they have momentary spikes, and then it's completely normal and calm and good, and they're fine. They're back to sniffing the ground, laying on the ground, eating some grass off the ground or out of a tree. We are running at too high of an RPM rating, too long, and not getting any rest and recovery, and we're setting ourselves up for altered digestion because, again, when your stress load goes up, your digestion goes down. So we call it rest and digest. When we stimulate through an adjustment, for example, a chiropractic adjustment, we can stimulate what we call the parasympathetic system. When we do these surveys in our office, we can look at and see what we're dealing with in the form of of activating the parasympathetic system, or measuring, the parasympathetic system versus the sympathetic system, the fight or flight, sympathetic, or the rest and digest, healing and recovery, the parasympathetic. And we are out of balance. We are too stressed out, running from the metaphoric grizzly bear, and that's what's setting people up to have digestive distress. So if you're one of the 60 million Americans, good gracious, that's a big number.
That's huge.
I don't even know how to really. Can we put, how many thousands of people you think we can pack in this little room?
Probably 4,000 or 5,000 right in this room. I'm guessing. That's just a hypothetical.
I like how you. I like your math. That would be pretty tight.
We didn't say what size of people.
This is true. This is true, and that is another risk factor. So like if you, one of the risk factors for gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, or acid reflux, heartburn, indigestion is high level body mass index.
Right.
High visceral fat, organ fat, the fat around the organs of our body. The higher those numbers, the more potential risk you have for developing this disorder.
When I was in college, I went to see a doctor because I would sit down to eat and I couldn't digest anything. I would start to I would feel pressure right here in my chest. Mm-hmm. I have to explain it to the radio people that can't see us on video.
Yeah, that you're rubbing your chest.
Yeah, on my chest, on the upper part of my chest here. And I would, just couldn't eat. And I was stressing, and I went to the doctor, and they did some tests, watched me eat food. It was kind of cool to kind of see. They would watch me eat the food, and they said, "You're not even swallowing, or you're not even chewing your food."
Yeah.
And so it can't
swallow
it.
Hits your tongue and gets catapulted down the esophagus.
So I'm not even eating my food, chewing the food. And so he said, "That's because you're stressed." And in college, I would go from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. That was my day. That wasn't how much I slept. That was literally my day every single day. And so you're not recovering. You're not resting.
And think about how old you were. You were 18, 19?
Yeah, 19. Definitely. Yeah.
So what they're finding statistically is that the average. The closer we get to 65, they say that when we hit 65, whatever happens at 64 to 65, but statistically, they have found when they do these measuring studies and they actually diagnose or look deeper into what actually is happening with the stomach acid production pumps, is that you have about 20% of the average American today in America at 65 years old has about 20% of what they could digest at 20. Okay?
Gotcha.
And it progressively gets less and less as they get to 85 and 95. But I always come back to, when I think about this study and stat, is I go, why would God create the body to wear out before it's done, right? If we are to, science agrees that we should be able to live to be 120, fully functional in spirit, mind, and body. Now, I get it. Some people are like, heck no, don't want that. Some people are ready to tap out, in their 50s or 60s. I'm not. I want people to live long and prosperous and fully functional, vibrant, vim, vigor, and vip, the gusto that they're looking for. I want all that for them, right?
I always thought when I was young, 40 was that's
was
old. That was old, right? Now that I'm getting close, I'm like, okay, 65.
Yeah, that's right.
Good.
We can go a little more. When we look at, if you were 19, 20 years old, and you were not digesting your food, you were feeling pressure in the chest, right? People know they have heartburn and they just instantly go, "Oh yeah, I had that last night," and they do the whole gorilla beat on the chest. They rub in their chest. They're thinking, "Oh my gosh, what is really wrong? Something's my heart is burning."
It is the worst feeling in the world, to have heartburn, because you can't do anything. You're debilitated by what you can do with that.
That's right. And you were 19, 20.
Yes.
And I'm seeing it more and more where it is, the younger population too suffering with these ails. And but yet at least you were given the option of evaluating, well, Mr. Casper, it appears based on what we can tell, you're not chewing your food. Step one, let's slow down and chew the food. So maybe don't eat in your car. You know what I mean?
I was just about ready to say that.
Or in your case, I know what you do. You were changing clothes and eating in the car while changing this radio dial.
Exactly.
I mean,
we really roll. And still today, I feel like, it's in the, hey, drive through the fast food line because we get 15 minutes
That's right.
to go to the next event that we have to go to. Or, some of these parents taking their kids to practice right after school. Hey, we've got to swing through. They're not planning ahead with food that they could be using.
And recognizing that food could be a causal link in the chain, right?
Right.
So you shifting gears, which I love, because it's like you're pitching me like a nice little fastball. You knew. So because we're talking about the stress factor, right? That's a piece of digestion that we don't necessarily consider. And now you bring in the conversation of the difference between real foods, sometimes foods, and never foods. If you're eating real food, your chance of digestion is better than if you eat a no-no food or a never food.
A never food. I love that.
That's right. And so fast food, I hate to say, there's nothing nutritionally dense under the fast food chain markets in most cases. And we were just discussing this yesterday morning at our clinical training, and we were evaluating again, just reminding one another again, that in 1920, it was estimated that 1 cup of spinach in 1920 is equivalent to 65 cups in like 2008. So it's probably even worse. So I don't know about you. I mean, I like vegetables. But do you want to eat 65 cups of spinach? No.
I'm glad you answered for me.
Yeah, I can see the distress. It's almost like you were thinking,
I'm not a big spinach guy. No, I'm not Popeye.
And that's right. But in that same conversation, then would go to squash or zucchini or asparagus or Brussels sprouts or beets or green beans or your favorite veggie.
Right.
And so if the nutritional content is down, or in this case, we're pulling into convenient food land, fast food nation. There's a whole documentary called The Fast Food Nation, and all the things that go into making fast food convenient and lovely and great for us as consumers. But also, what does that cost? See, every choice we have comes with a valued benefit and a potential risk factor. And so when we eat never foods, no foods, one of the things that get us in trouble is we overconsume. I mean, we all know the phrase super size me, right?
Right, the documentary.
That's right. So what about, there's not, yeah, exactly. But before that, it was an actual thing, and it still is. Yes, I'd like to, would you like to supersize that? Of course I want to supersize that. When enough is as good as a feast, Mary Poppins says, McDonald's comes out and says what? Supersize me, baby. Give me more. Give me some of that good stuff. And the reality is enough is as good as a feast. And so now not only are we eating food that has less nutritionally dense ingredients, that it's been processed, it's been preserved, it's high in bad oils or bad fats, things that are notorious for causing the body to break down and to malfunction rapidly. Now we are overindulging in it too. So we eat the wrong food, and then we eat too much of the wrong food too often.
Right.
It's all of that stuff that plays a part when a person is dealing with heartburn, indigestion, acid reflux, the works, right? And so some of the things that people deal with in addition to the this acid reflux is they burp a lot. Why do I burp so much? Oh, there he goes.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not burping.
What about regurgitation? They feel like undigested food is actually kind of spitting back up in their esophagus. That's an uncomfortable feeling. I remember I was in Dallas. This was many moons ago, probably at least 4 years ago, and we went to this place, and it was a really good. They had this cool brunch. This cool brunch spread that came out. So there was me, my wife, and this other couple, and we went to a seminar. We go to this place and we eat, and they had on this spread, they had these gorgeous little wafflets, not big waffles, like little pieces of waffle. Then they had, these spicy fried chicken. I don't know if you've ever had fried chicken and waffles or not, but holy cow, it is delicious.
Add some gravy on top of there.
They did. They had biscuits and gravy. They had oatmeal. They had eggs. Dude, they French toast. They had little pastries that I don't even know what they were called. It was.
I'm hungry now.
It was.
We can stop listing all these foods.
I know. So anyway, I was going to be a good boy, and I was just going to have a little bit of the fried chicken and the little wafflets. And I mean, this was a higher end, brunch type experience. It wasn't like it was, fast food. We had, but it was definitely restaurant food. We sit down and eat. Earlier in the day, your digestion is better than it is later in the day. So it's not like I don't feel like I overconsumed. And definitely earlier in the day, my digestion should have been able to handle it. If I recall, and I could be wrong on this, but I do recall having a bottle of Zypan and Enzicor, these two supplements here that we're going to talk about in a moment, waiting to be consumed while I was eating this food because I knew it was outside of my normal. And I tell you what, I didn't, not eat. I definitely enjoyed, but man, let me tell you, I'm so glad that I had caramel marshmallow on that 5-hour drive home because I literally felt fire breathing up out of my esophageal pipe, and I was breathing hot fire the whole ride home. And every time I would burp, I would poop, 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 2 droppers of chamomile marshmallow in order to kind of help put and soothe that esophageal fire. And I'm telling you, I wish I could have just vomited that stuff up and got it out of there so that my system wouldn't fight me so hard. It could have been the oils, it could have been the spice, it could have been the fact that I was mixing sugar and fried food together and bad oils together. I mean, there could have been so many combinations there that created that experience for me. But that's the message. Is your food choices matter, especially if you're already suffering or dealing with, even at a fractional level, heartburn or indigestion.
One of the things that I've always noticed, and speaking of going out to eat, right, that every time you go out to eat anywhere, that I always feel more full than if I was eating something at home.
Especially even in the same idea. It could be the taco salad at home versus a taco salad at a restaurant. It could be a steak and steak meal at a restaurant versus steak meal at your house. I notice the same thing. And what that is it's what they're frying the stuff in. It's the oils they're cooking it in. It's the it's the dressings. It's got more sugar in it than you might be using in the dressings that you're mindful of at home because you're being a good Dr. Chapa patient and you're trying to focus on controlling ingredients. There's no way we're going to be perfect. I mean, I'm not. The fact that the stat is 65 cups of spinach to 1 cup of spinach in most foods. That model probably applies. We're going to have to do some things to supplement, right? The enzyme quality is lower in food. Therefore, it doesn't break itself down. Well, we're not eating raw food. So obviously, we're not eating raw food. It doesn't have the biophotons. It doesn't have the enzymes. It doesn't have all that's. It naturally breaks down in our bodies, and our body doesn't have to work so hard. That's one of the major reasons people wear out their stomach acid pumps so early in life is because they're eating dead, nutritionally devoid food. And when you force your body to do all the work, you wear the engine out faster. And so it demands you to be more proactive in what you're trying to accomplish whenever it says, hey, I've got to take enzymes, or I got to take some more minerals, or I've got to do some things to restore my good health. And so that is what ultimately acid reflux and indigestion is leading us to. A couple other symptoms that people are dealing with. They can't get rid of that chronic cough. That could be a cause, especially if they're lying down. It seems like it gets worse. It could be from the irritation of the acid reflux. Or that hoarse feeling. They feel like they're always raspy. They feel like they're always kind of like they're talking from the back of their throat from a point of irritation instead of from having a full vocal cord and a full vocal box in order to work with.
Speaking of vocal box, as you get older too, your voice goes lower. I was talking to somebody about that the other day. I'm like, man, you don't think about that.
But what if it's because of the inflammation in the tissues because we're eating food that's inflammatory. We're seeing a change in how our digestive processes work, and now we're developing this lower voice. Or what if you find that you always have a metallic taste in your mouth or a sour taste in your mouth? That sour and pleasant taste is often associated with acid reflux and indigestion. When you see that excessive salivation, like where you're constantly dealing with, needing water all the time, and you never can get thirsty. Well, I'll tell you, number one, that's a mineral problem. Well, one of the things about the sphincters all throughout our intestinal tract, the valves, so sphincter equals valve, and valves, remember, they're designed to go north to south from our mouth to our hind end. And so if they get down past the stomach, they're not supposed to go back up into the esophagus. It's a one-way track. Minerals that are low in the body will cause the valves to relax. And those valves, when they relax, then allows contents that are downstream to somewhat back up upstream, even whenever you're standing up. But we oftentimes notice that when we lay down, these symptoms are worse. And that's why people, when they go to bed at night, they're up all night. I remember my father notoriously would be in the kitchen in his rocking chair late in the evening, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, because his reflux and indigestion was so bad. And he lived on Gaviscon. It was like a version of Pepto, but he liked this other flavor better in this other company. And basically, it was a antacid. It was a coat, if you will, to help put out that inflammatory fire. And I remember watching him suck that stuff down. I used to drink it because, man, it tasted kind of weirdly good. And, maybe it's some of my problems.
I used to get the Tums out of my parents' bathroom just to,
chew on them like mints.
Candy. It was like, oh, this is candy.
Say, parents are hiding out
on
me.
My mom would be like, that's not candy. Stop eating that. It doesn't help you.
I'm telling you. And so we keep looking, and acid reflux and indigestion can also cause dental issues, dental hygiene. You constantly feel like you got bad breath. You constantly see recession of
no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
I was gonna say I got some peppermint oil. We can help you out.
Making sure.
The gums begin to recede. I mean, how many people are going in for periodontal disease and they're treating it with antibiotics? They're treating it with surgery. They're treating it with gum grafts, where they're doing very advanced oral surgeries, and it's a downstream problem that we need to fix. And this is a very big area of involvement where we're looking in the wrong department to fix what the symptoms are. And so if you're, again, experiencing symptoms that you were not genetically born with, this is where we want to intervene and teach you why your body's breaking down and what you can do to fix it. And so if you're dealing with difficulty swallowing, you notice that after you eat, you get that kind of stuck feeling, you're having the bad breath, you got the sour taste in your mouth, you feel like things just aren't digesting, like you got a brick in your stomach, hey, that's when you give Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center a call. We want to be your number one health and wellness resource to teach you why and your body breaks down and what you can do to intervene to fix it. And because there's no sense suffering with burning chest pain. There's no sense having that feeling that things aren't moving well or it's altering your sleep, because we know that if you're not sleeping, you're not healing. And if you're not healing, you're activating that sympathetic stress response, and you're starting your day already in a stress deficit.
Have you obviously you've talked to Gardy every Tuesday here on the show, but he wears a Whoop that measures recovery. Have you seen that? Have you talked to them kind of about that?
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting I had one for a while. I stopped using it because it was too expensive. It's like $40 a month, which just makes no sense. Just to see if
Measuring
you're recovering.
Yeah,
like it just. I was like,
well,
that's too much.
If you're training and athletic and you're doing things that demand, I can pretty much tell. Yes, these measuring devices are wonderful,
right?
And they show recovery. They show what we call, are you ready to train today based on how you recovered last night? And when we're looking at heart rate variability and all these statistics, we can we can use that to advance the athlete forward. We can also use, there's a bunch of, even on the basic apps of our phones,
Right.
can determine, if you're hitting some of these places of sleep. And they're just data points. Even though they're not all exactly perfect, I still think there could be value in knowing that, man, 75% of my night was me tossing and turning and fighting with my pillow.
Yeah,
That's not good.
The weirdest one, I read an article, it was back last year, so before, I guess, the Super Bowl of last year, they interviewed Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes actually uses the Whoop, and they went back and looked at the data of his game. So I guess he wears a Whoop during the football games as well, and during the recovery, and they could predict whether or not Patrick Mahomes was going to have a good game based on his Whoop recovery that he had.
And again,
isn't that crazy?
I think that's the power of analysis.
Right.
If you're consistently looking, so like in our office, we have an InBody, and this InBody allows us to evaluate liver function, extracellular water capacity, intracellular water capacity, electrical activity of the cells, how active and healthy are they. It lets us see body fat, body mass index, BMR, basal metabolic rate, visceral fat content, muscle mass, body fat, everything. It shows us a ton of stuff. And here's what I noticed about mine. There was a time I tested mine every Monday, every Sunday, or whatever it was. And I noticed that mine stayed pretty accurate, like pretty much the same. And it's because I had already kind of peaked out my gains without doing, eating another 4,000 calories, which I just am not willing to do, and or train, my training regimen. So I had everything kind of what I would call dialed in. And even today, even though I'm not running at like 6.5% body fat, which I don't know is healthy to do long term anyway, I can see where over the last 3 months, I'm very consistent. Like my weight is about the same, my body fat is about the same, my liver function is about the same, my visceral fat, my organ fat is about the same, and even though I still eat very clean, I do deviate a little more than I used to, how I got down to that 6.5 at one point. And but the amount of dedication it took to get down there and to hold down there was more. It's athletic. It's superior, right? It's not something that I think we should that we can really maintain for long periods of time. I started noticing even in my blood work, having low fat like that could cause some change to my testosterone levels, and I don't want to wear myself out whenever I've got another 60 plus years to go. Remember, I want to be 120 fully functional in spirit, mind, and body. I want my body to perform well. I guess that's 80 years or so to go. And so the game is, what can I do to recognize, hey, I have a symptom. Number one, if you got symptoms, we are a friend to you. Like, we have help to offer you. We have a game plan to give you. And so whether it's athletics or whether it's just job performance, how many people are not able to think creatively in a creative job market because they're beating on their chest, they're rubbing their tummy. They're just like, man, my stomach hurts and my system feels bloated, Kurt. I feel like that brick's just sitting there, and they, after lunch, they just don't feel good the rest of the day. So it's not just in athletics that it affects us, even at the simple, and I think that's the message, is we go, this is a big, major problem. What are we doing to fix it? And we're not encouraging people to evaluate a food log. We're not encouraging people to see, hey, look at all the fruit you eat. You eat too much fruit, because whenever people says they eat fruits and vegetables, they really just eat a bunch of fruit, right? And the juicy stuff, the citrusy stuff, the high sugar, the high fructose stuff, and the dried sugar-laced stuff. And we eat a bunch of this stuff, and it causes a change in acidity and creates basically an increased risk for acid reflux. But what if we got people to eat more apples and melons and pears? And maybe we got their consumption down a little bit, got them to observe that, you need to be eating 2 vegetables to 1 fruit, not 5 fruits to maybe a vegetable, And that's what people do, and that's okay. as long as, they can get away with it, but most of the time, sooner or later, it's going to catch them, and they're going to have to do something. Or what about the people that are, every time they drink coffee, they get that acid in their stomach. They get that metallic taste later, about 30, 45 minutes later, or they get that soury kind of like, I'm thirsty taste in their mouth later within the next hour or two after drinking it. That's an indication that you've hit your caffeine threshold. Your system is not allowing you to push past that RPM stimulant rating.
I've noticed it with different kind of foods too, and Gardy and I have talked about this too, because I know you've talked about it on the show before. But there are certain foods that we reach a threshold in our body on. So for me, right now, that's garlic. Like anytime that I have garlic, anything, I've reached my life threshold, and that's when I have those acidic issues. It's not necessarily that. But there's just different things that I know.
Tomatoes, garlic, onions. These are known trigger foods that can potentially create glitches for people. High-fat foods, processed snacks, bagged chips, things of that nature. These things are all trigger foods. And if these are your trigger foods, guess what?
Avoid them.
First, avoid them. I mean, recognize that if it hurts, don't do that, right? And the hurting, the symptom is the hurt. That's your body telling you, don't do that.
Isn't it funny, though, that you try it? Hey, I can't do this. I shouldn't do this. We still do it, expecting a different result.
Yes. What do we? And we know what that
humans,
is, right?
Right?
That's just the way
that's humans.
Humans are. We're crazy, insane people, and we don't realize. But so let's shift gears again and say, okay, well, this is obviously a problem. We obviously see where it's coming from. It's food induced, stress induced. It's recovery induced. We're literally we're not in a place where we need to where we're able to digest like we should or could. So what can you do if you have acid reflux, indigestion, heartburn, or even something more extreme like Barrett's esophagus, where you've got, that valve is completely wrecked and acid is eating up your esophageal lining, or you have small intestine duodenal ulcers because that valve is opening. Listen, number one, you need to be evaluated. Right. I do agree when docs say that you need to be evaluated. That's step one. But do they need to run a scope down your throat? No, that is not, I don't think, step one. I think it's nice to have a little picture, but the reality is do we need to put, tubes and cameras down our throat we already know something's going on. I don't necessarily need to know how bad it is yet. Let's try to fix some of this stuff, right? If you wanted to do something, real extreme, do blood tests. I can see acid reflux, indigestion, stomach acid pump markers, 5 different ways in your standard blood test that we run in my office. But when it comes to less aggressive, something that you guys can do listening to my voice now on the radio is just look at a food log. Start evaluating, writing down what you eat, and then notate out when you notice acid reflux, indigestion, bloating, gas, burping, all those symptoms, that chronic cough that won't go away, how long have you had it, etc. We start looking at your symptom patterns.
So one of the things that when you're making that food log, it's not just marking what foods you're eating, it's how you feel after.
Sure.
Because walk us through what that looks like, just in case.
Yeah, so when you have breakfast, if every time you eat, you have your cereal and pastry for breakfast and your coffee for breakfast, and then by 10 o'clock you're burping, you are bloated, you are feeling tired, and your system is digestively dominant, meaning you got a brick in your stomach and early in the day. Or let's say that you eat, your 3 meals throughout the day, and nighttime you always find I got to make sure you start noticing if I eat at 7:32, I'm going to have reflux. But if I eat at 7, I'm okay. And you start being able to notate how you eat and what symptoms you have when, then you start tying pieces of the puzzle together, and it helps you go, that's why I think a lot of people enjoy fasting, intermittent fasting, because they don't have the symptoms that they were having, because they are so close to what we call a symptom threshold, and a symptom of distress, a symptom of pain. And so if they can eat later in the day and they can get maybe one meal, and they don't have to suffer with the ails, they're more functional in the job, their body doesn't have as much intestinal food to digest, because digestion's violent. It's not an easy process. And so what we do in our office is we have them fill out a food log, and then we start asking questions around the food. We start asking questions on when the symptoms pop up. And notice it's not just heartburn. It's not just grabbing your chest. It's the chronic cough is important to note. It's the burping that's important to note. It's the taste in the mouth, metallic or sour or excessively thirsty. We start looking at other factors. Does burning happen 2 hours after the meal? Does it happen immediately, indulging in a meal? And so once we have that data coming in and we're helping people see, and we can highlight inflammation from the no foods and never foods, we can then start encouraging them to eat some of the more appropriate foods, the healthy foods, and teach them. And then we come in with what we call enzyme support. So I have orthodigestime sitting up here, and I've got Enzacor sitting up here. These both are very capable to break down carbohydrates. They're pancreatic enzymes. Here you go. And these are wonderful, wonderful, supplements that help give our body pancreatic enzyme production and basically small intestine support, and preparing for what's coming down the pike from our stomach. Well, that's all fine and dandy, and that's an area that we really want to make sure we impact, because you're only as good as the food you can digest or absorb. And
I thought that was going to be one of those.
Well, the eating is important, but what you eat is important, but what you don't eat is
even more important.
And so we need the pancreatic enzymes, because again, we're eating too many no foods. We're eating too many never foods. We're eating too much in one setting, consumption. And so you need the enzymes in order to maximize the breakdown of that meal that you're consuming. Anytime you go out to eat, you better have this in your spouse's purse. You better put some of this in your little pill pouch for yourself. You ought to have it at breakfast, lunch, dinner, every meal if you're having any kind of symptom. One symptom that we didn't talk about, that I know all of you guys are shocked that I didn't bring up, but I'll bring it up now, is constipation. If you're not breaking down the food and that brick that's down there, no wonder. So things aren't moving like they're supposed to. And if the dude don't move,
the dude don't groove.
And that's trouble. We don't need that, because when you back up your lower intestine, that's a big major problem, which we're going to talk about a solution to that in just a brief moment. What you got?
What is that? I'm bringing up again probably one of these things that Chapa doesn't like, but I did a weight loss competition.
I remember.
Okay, and so like 2 days before we had to weigh in, I went to the gas station over here.
I remember.
And got some X-Lax.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
It didn't really do anything, but it was just funny to me. That's what I was laughing about in the background.
Yeah, you're thinking, oh yeah,
I remember
this guy's
that.
due was moving, and
it didn't change anything, but it was just funny to me. Like, I didn't expect it to taste that way.
Yes, right.
It's
that's right.
weird, the X-Lax taste, anyways.
But again, that is a solution, just not the end solution or the best solution.
Right.
So to me, we skipped a step. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because how many people do we recognize that they're skipping steps? You can't skip the steps of easy and then get shocked when extreme doesn't work, because you didn't fix the underlying cause.
I don't think I had anything in me at that point, so it
yeah,
didn't matter.
Stimulate something, right? So then we look at this guy here called Zypan. So I have a couple different stomach acid support products, and Zypan has the ability it's pancreatic enzymes, but it also is betaine HCl. It's betaine. It helps the stomach proton pump or the stomach acid pumps to produce acids. And this is the big misnomer, guys, is that your acid reflux, your indigestion, your heartburn, it is not you having too much acid. your issue is you're eating the wrong food, too much of the wrong food, you're in the wrong environment, meaning you're too stressed, and your body is not in a position to break down food adequately. Zypan, because again, rest and digest and stress is important, but Zypan gives your body the stomach acids it needs to break down the food that you eat. And so when I have patients come in and they're living on antacids, when they're living on the purple pill, when they're living on all these acid-blocking drugs, they skipped the step. They are now blocking the body's natural God-given pathway. That the body says, when I eat, I'm supposed to produce acid. But doc, my chest pain. Doc, my acid reflux. But doc, whatever, right? So the Zypan will do the exact opposite of the blockers. It puts a healthy stimulant of acids into the stomach. And what the other side of that mineral conversation we tried to have earlier, where if your minerals get low, your valves open up, those sphincters open up, and then bad things happen. When your acid levels get too low, meaning you're too alkaline, you drink too much water before you eat. You drink the high pH water before you eat. You're taking the antacids so that your acid levels come up, like you actually get alkaline. That there's like a valve meter or an acid meter, and the more acidic. So like when the stomach produces acid, it would burn your finger off. Like whenever you stuck your hand in an acid bucket, that'd be bad news bear. And your stomach is that acidic. It's so acidic that it will literally eat your fingers and bones. I mean, it's not. It wouldn't be good. It's amazing that we have this bucket of acid living inside of our vessel, and on either side of it, it's not designed to be acidic. Right. It's phenomenal when you think about how powerful the stomach is and what its capabilities are. And so the Zypan will put acid in, lower your acid level pH back into that normal low level acid level, and that sphincters will go, oh, we got danger in the bucket. We got to cinch those valves tight, and that is what we're trying to accomplish. And so we will come in and we will put healthy acid levels back into your body, teach you which foods to avoid, and then all of a sudden you note, hey, the acid reflux is getting better. The acid reflux now is gone. I had a lady that, I couldn't do this because she was so inflamed, Kurt, that anything we did to her stomach was more than her stomach could handle because she was like on fire. So we had to use some other modalities to calm the fire down so that we could then turn the pumps back on. So you could be one of those extreme cases. So we recognize that that's a possibility. We got your back. We still are patient enough to guide you through the process, but that's the indicator. If something is healthy and wonderful as this stuff is, because 95% of the time people aren't in that extreme case, this is a product that will literally be a game changer to help them digest their food. They can take 1 tablet, 2 tablets, 3 tablets with a meal in the middle of the meal, preferably. And that is like making sure you have adequate acids down there churning up and making a healthy bolus for your small intestine to then devour.
That lady who took the Zypan, did she see any changes beyond just her digestive? Did she see more cognitive awareness?
So, it wasn't so much cognitive awareness. It was that she began, at first, again, it was the backlash. The body did not like the changes we were making. We were going too fast. Once we slowed down the process and we started cleaning up other areas of the body, improving mineral absorption levels, that's where things really began to change. And how we got her to a point where she could improve her mineral absorption levels, man, you are good at just pitching me fastballs. It leads us into the last, little part of my talk today that I wanted to share. Intestinal cleanse number 2. So we had to actually do a bowel cleanse with her. And people go, oh, Dr. Chapa, here he goes again, talking about, diarrhea. No, this is not a diarrhea cleanse. We don't believe in diarrhea cleanses. This is a bentonite clay, activated charcoal, healthy, soothing, calming herbs that are going to be cleansing, brushing effect, if you will, on the intestinal tract.
these used to be in bottles, didn't these?
No, these are always been in bags. So
there's an intentional cleanse that you do for the
detox. That's called SP cleanse.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a little different animal. Still, and so there's definitely aspects of cleansing. This one is very specific to the large intestine. So when you take bentonite clay, activated charcoal, and these soothing, calming, cool herbs, they create like a binding effect, an absorption effect, a sponging-like effect, and they can sop up messes that we've got built up in our tissues. And so when we began to put this product in, we had her take 2 pills 5 times a day for 5 days, and we made sure her bowels were continuing to move, making sure that she was not having any negative signs or symptoms. Once we did that 5 days, we gave her a 5-day break, and then we did it again. Well, we wound up having to do it like 4 or 5 times, 5 days on, 5 days off, 5 days on, 5 days off, and because she was so backed up. But interestingly, she lost about 10 pounds because she had about 10 pounds of, well, probably more than that, but at least 10 pounds of obvious fecal waste that was stuck inside of her intestinal tract. So she was literally, Kurt, backed up, and it was causing her indigestion, reflux to be worse up at the upper level, right? So the lower dam was all gummed up, and it backed up flow, and nothing could move through at the appropriate speed. Well, this stuff here was able to push and pull and suck that trash out. This stuff sucks trash at what I would call 10,000 times its net weight. So like one capsule, it's got a sucking power 10,000 times whatever that little, dirt powder capsule weighs. That's impressive. If I can pull trash out, so you should be able to do 12 pills 5 times a day. Do the math. That's 60 pills in a day for 5 days and never get constipated on this stuff. And nobody can do it. I mean, I've gotten up there. I mean, I know it can be done, but I have most patients, I've had to lower this dosing to something that they can start with. I have some people, I can only do 1 pill 3 times a day because they're so backed up. And that is one of the messages. If we can literally clean out the bowel, guess what begins to happen? Your absorption improves naturally. So now what is coming down the pike, the body goes, oh, I need those minerals. So now I just improve the sphincter load and how the body digestively operates, right? And so then the body begins to restore its natural, mineral load in other areas. And now all of a sudden it's got some reserve left over, and it can help the stomach begin to work more efficiently and begin to turn on. And because the inflammation now is down in the upper GI because we have been cleaning out the lower. We don't have all this backup, sediment and stagnation sitting there irritating the tissue. Now it's beginning to flow like a river. And when we start getting that flow like a river, we know that bowels are moving at their healthy pace, what they're supposed to be doing 17 to 18, 19 hours when you eat a meal that you should actually excrete a meal. Some foods are faster, but in general, that you eat a meal approximately 16 to 19 hours later, it should be coming out. And people don't realize that. People don't realize that the dew that they're having this morning or this afternoon or tonight is actually 5 days ago, not 18 hours. That's not good. And that's where we want to teach people that you, even though are having a bowel movement every day, if you're not cleansing, if you're not detoxing in the 21st century, you're missing a huge piece of your healthcare plan. And this is another reason why your stomach acids get worn out before your time. And this is an area where we can really intervene and serve people well and help people get away from antacids. We can get them off of these, pseudo treatment options. We can prevent them from having to stuff cameras down their pie hole in order to see that they have an obvious problem when we already hear that they have an obvious problem. And we don't have to do some of these extreme things, especially when we have tools like this. So we do, intestinal cleanse number 2, 5 days on, 5 days off. We do that, monthly, if that's all you can do, or if that's all you're willing to do. Hey, it's better than you're doing. Change those air filters. Rotate those tires. Get that new oil change. Your car will last longer. Your AC filters or your AC unit will thank you, and your pocketbook will thank you. And now you can go on that vacation you've always wanted to. You see, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I don't want you to wake up and have an advanced disorder because no one taught you how to take care of your body when it was giving you the baby symptoms. The baby symptoms, although are baby-ish, they are weeds. They will potentially turn into something else. They will become a small fox that will ruin and spoil the garden. So once we clean the bowel with the number 2, then we're able to use the stomach acids and enzymes to maximize your absorption abilities until your body starts performing on its own. Unless you're one of those people that has to live on this kind of stuff because you won't sleep and you won't deal with your stress. If you're going to run at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 RPMs and expect your body to maintain itself, you are delusional. I hate to say. We've got to do something about that. We've got to help you. And listen, guys, I would say that I'm in the category of needing enzymes myself at 42 because I am a busybody. I can't sit still. All you guys pick on me because I shake my legs on the radio. I thank God Kurt and Gardy decided just to cut me off so that nobody sees my legs are shaking. But I
shake too.
I get excited. I got passion, and then I have to stay still long enough to talk to my mic. So something's got to move. Because I'm always grooving and always moving, and I want you to also. And so it's okay if you have to use tools to help your body digest. Your body should be able to do it on its own. It will do it on its own if you can manage the stress, the consumption, the quality of the consumption, the amount of the consumption, and that's where we really want to intervene and serve you best. Because if you are living your best life, you're feeling good, you're able to be creative, you're able to be energetic, you're able to be functional and present with your family all the day long, all the evening long. I mean, I was able to come home last night after a busy day of seeing patients and have energy to play hide and seek with my kids. And we laughed and we giggled and we laughed and we giggled. And all of us, I mean, even we got Kinley, 16 years old. I mean, we're all like, hide and seek, and we limited it only to the upstairs of the house to make it even more challenging for the hiders because there's only so many places you can go. And we did that for like an hour, and being able to get in weird spots. I mean, if you're feeling cruddy, you're not doing that. If you have no energy because your body is using up all of its daily energy just to digest your food because it's digestively inefficient, then you're not going to have any gusto at the end of the day. And so we want to pay attention to how your body's performing. We want to pay attention to these things because you are in more control of your health than you may realize. And at Living Well, we believe that all life starts and stops at the cellular level. You got it. And if you eat quality, nutritious, densely rich foods, guess what? Your body will excel. If you eat poor quality, fast, junk, no foods or never foods, don't expect your body to perform like a race car. Don't think it's going to win a race. Don't expect it to go the distance. Your body's going to fall apart faster on you, and unfortunately, at the most inopportune, inappropriate time. You're in control. This is what we talk about. You're in control of your health, and we want you to help you navigate the terrain, to rebuild the terrain so that your body will perform at its best day in and day out. And it's simple knowledge like this. We spent a whole hour talking about acid reflux, indigestion, Barrett's esophagus, this chronic coughing, burping, sour taste, metallic-y taste in the mouth are all links in the chain to a low or a mismanaged stomach acid issue, but it is due to downstream problems, enzymatic pancreatic problems, liver problems, stomach issues, stress issues. There's so much tied to the 60 million Americans floating around out there that are suffering needlessly with these ails. So if you have challenges in your health in any way, capacity, shape, and form, in any area, man, let us be a voice in your life. We want to be your number one health and wellness resource. And we believe that, when you tune into this podcast, when you share this with your friends, family, and loved ones, you're going to be blessed. Your friends and family are going to be blessed. And we're going to make a difference in the world because we're going to be the creative geniuses that are still out there producing new ideas and new ways of thought because our bodies are performing and our bodies aren't, in the accelerated aging game. So God bless you today. I'm glad that you guys tune in every week, and I really am thrilled as you guys continue to give me ideas to talk about on the radio that y'all want to hear. And so I'm just thankful that I can share this with you guys and give this to you guys, and then you guys can implement these little ideas, and then y'all give us feedback. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you feel. Give it a go, and let's see, how we can help you while you're on the air. When we're live, this is for you. I mean, how cool is it that we can talk shop live and see real people go through the program? So God bless you guys. Y'all have a fantastic one. This is Dr. Aaron Chapa, out.
Awesome. You can listen and follow along on any platform you get your podcasts. So today on the show, we learned that we can fit 5,000 people inside of this radio booth, and you can fit 60 pills inside of your body. You're listening to 99.5 KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM.